there are various options that you can access the Proxmox virtual environment. If you are a beginner and you want to manage the Proxmox virtual environment, the best option to manage your Proxmox virtual environment is to use the web user interface. You can do almost everything related to Proxmox in the web user interface. You can configure Proxmox virtual environment, whether it is storage configuration, network configuration, creation of the virtual machines, creation of the containers, managing the containers, doing the basic operations, doing the migration, creating the cluster. Almost everything can be done in the web user interface. If you are advanced user and you want to have better control over Proxmox virtual environment, then only you can use the command line user interface. We'll be using various commands when it comes to migration of the servers, or if you want to stop any virtual machine by force. So all of these can be done through the command line tool. We'll go through the web user interface of Proxmox virtual environment and we'll understand what all is there in the Proxmox virtual environment. Here you can see I am on Proxmox virtual environment. So you will enter the user ID and password that you had set up during the installation. We'll simply click on login. The moment you log in, the first message that you see is that there is no valid subscription. Of course, Proxmox also provides you the enterprise subscription, which will help you to get the updates if you are using on the production environment. As I'm not using on production environment, I will be simply ignoring this. We'll click OK. And if you go into data center and down here in the support, you will see here no valid subscription is available. So subscription will help you to get the support from Proxmox in case you want to have that. Otherwise, you can start using it. There is community support available and you will learn everything about this in this particular course to get started. Once you log into Proxmox, here on top menu right side, you will see here you can create the virtual machine from here and you can create the container here, and here is the documentation section available within the Proxmox virtual environment. You don't need internet connection to see the documentation because this documentation is stored within the Proxmox virtual environment. So we'll be covering most of this in this course. And here on top right, you can see the user ID, which is root at PAM. And you can click here to enable the two-factor authentication, to change the color theme, to change the password, to change the language, and you can log out from here. Of course, two-factor authentication will help you to secure your environment, and I will be doing that first. I will be clicking on two-factor authentication, and here you need to use the method of two-factor authentication. One of the method is one-time password, which is time-based. Other one is web authentication, then is the recovery keys. If you are using YubiKey, you can use that as well. You can use time-based one-time password. For example, if I'm using the Google Authenticator, here is Google Authenticator that I'm using. I can use Google Authenticator to configure the two-factor authentication. So how I'll do that, I'll just simply go here and scan the QR code. The moment I scan the QR code, it will add it and I'll give it a name. And here I'll be adding the OTP, which will be. Now I can simply log out, and the moment I log in with the user ID password, it will ask me the two-factor authentication, and I need to simply provide that two-factor authentication. Now you are logged in using two-factor authentication, and two-factor authentication is already configured. In case you want to disable that, you can simply remove the two-factor authentication and you will be able to log in normally. In case you have lost the access to the two-factor authentication, I'll be downloading the keys here. These all keys will be available. Suppose I'll be just copying these keys. I'll keep the keys here, and now let me show you login using recovery keys. So I'll be able to use the recovery key only one time. So once I use one key, I won't be able to use this key again. So I will just remove that key from here. I'll come back here and add that recovery keys and confirm two-factor authentication. I'm able to log in to this server using the user ID, password, and two-factor authentication. This is the best way to secure your virtual environment if there are multiple users on your network and you want to make sure that other users are not simply able to guess the user ID password, or they are not able to use the brute force attack to guess your password. And similarly, if you are exposing your Proxmox virtual environment on internet, so it will be very hard for the hackers to get into your Proxmox virtual environment if you have enabled two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is the best way currently available in addition to user ID and password. We have already seen this particular section. We can change the theme. By default, these days it is dark theme or auto theme. You can use light theme, which was the primary theme. I'm not comfortable with white theme because it gives strain to eyes, so I'll be using the dark theme. I'll be changing it to dark theme again, or default, which will be auto. Now here, this is the main page here, and these are divided into multiple sections. So we have seen the top bar. On left side, you can see all the server resources or all the data center resources. You can see multiple views here. If you click on server view, you can click on folder view, and you can click on pool view. Most of the time I'm using the server view. It will give me access to all the nodes in a tree format from here, and I can see all the resources from here. Here, once I click on data center, I will be able to access all the information related to data center. If you have multiple nodes on your data center, so in summary, you will be able to see the summary of all the nodes. Right now, only one node is available. In this particular course, you will see that I will go from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. So we will have 3 nodes, but right now we'll go with 1, and I'll explain you how to do the basic configuration. Proxmox virtual environment, which is the node, which is the server, which is the physical server, has these 3 options here. If you see Proxmox virtual environment, it has got all these settings. And if you see the network has got all these settings. Then this is the storage. All the storage devices will be available. The moment you add more storage devices, these will be available. And this storage device is available within this particular hardware server, within this physical server, or within this Proxmox virtual environment, or within this Proxmox node. And data center is in fact combining all these Proxmox nodes. So data center will give you holistic view of all the Proxmox virtual environments, all the Proxmox nodes on your data center. First of all, we'll see everything related to Proxmox virtual environment, and then we'll go and see the settings inside the data center. The moment you click here, you will see all of the details related to this Proxmox virtual environment here. In summary, you will be able to see the CPU usage, disk usage, RAM space available, and all the hardware related information. Kernel version is Linux 6.5, where this particular Proxmox is installed on, and manager version Proxmox virtual environment manager 8.1. And here you can see the repository status. Production ready enterprise repository is enabled. It needs a valid subscription. From here, if I go down, repositories, you can see here in this same section in updates repository, you can see that all the repositories are enabled right now. As we are not going to use the enterprise repository, we can simply go here into the enterprise repository and we can disable this. And here also PVE enterprise list. So I'll be simply disabling these both. Now enterprise repository is disabled right now. Now if I go here to summary, and here again after summary there is nodes, I can add the nodes related to this particular Proxmox virtual environment. Same nodes are also available in data center. If you go to data center, these are the nodes that you can add related to data center. I can add the node here. For example, this is the data center. You can of course add all the documentation here so that you can come back and understand that what was there. But if I go here to PVE nodes, that node is not available here. You can enter the nodes. This is PVE for the Proxmox course, and you can add more information, the documentation, whatever you want to add, you can add it here. And these notes can be used for yourself also to refer back, and these can be used for other system administrators or the server administrators to understand. And here shell, as I mentioned, that you can access the Proxmox virtual environment using the command line interface also. Here also you can use the same thing. Again, as I mentioned, simple command ipddr to check the IP address. If you want to see the QM list, it will give you a list of all the virtual machines and so on. I have explained you in the command section. We will go into system section now. In system, you can see first of all, there are various services which are running inside this Proxmox virtual environment. For example, SSHD, which is secure shell server, where you were able to access Proxmox virtual environment using the SSH client. as we were able to access it from here. This is possible only because the service was enabled here, which is running. So you can see all the services. There is cron which is running, and here these are all other services which are running. Cluster engine, the moment we'll start the cluster, we'll enable the cluster, it will start syncing it. Right now it is dead, and these are all other services. Postfix mail agent is enabled, where you will be able to get the notification from the Proxmox to your email address in case you want to stop the service. For example, if I disable the SSHD and I stop it, now I won't be able to access. Here you can see if I go to 192.168.100.5, connection will be refused because the SSH service is disabled right now. And if I start this again, and here you can see I will be now able to access it. I restart the session. You can see here I am now able to access it on the same IP address. So this way, these are all the services which are running. So by default, these are running, and for the specific job, if you want to enable or disable the service, you can do it from the system. And if you expand this system now, there are multiple other options which are available. One is time. If you want to change the time zone, you can change the time zone from here. And then is options. You can enable the wake on LAN feature, otherwise we'll leave it blank. Hosts. So this particular Proxmox PVE is using pve.syncbricks.com. This is the host configuration here. So in case you want to change this PVE to PVE1, so you can do that as well. And once you save this setting, so it will be changed. And here also you can use the PVE1, so it will change the setting. But I'm not going to change it. I will revert it, and I'll keep these settings here. In case you want to change the IP address for this host, you can do that as well. But of course, you need to change the IP address from the network that I'll explain you. DNS is by default using the DNS of the DHCP server. So I can change it to use the other DNS servers. For example, if I want to use the Cloudflare DNS, or if I want to use the Google DNS 8.8.8.8, so you can use those as well. If you have any local DNS server, so you can use that as well. So I can now use multiple DNS servers here, but if you don't want to use, you can simply go and disable those DNS servers from here. Or if I want to use it again, I can enable the DNS servers. So if your local DNS is not working, of course, it will be able to give the response from the external DNS servers. Here is the SSL certificate. These are the self-signed SSL certificate by Proxmox virtual environment. You can upload your custom certificates from here. For example, if you are using Cloudflare or Let's Encrypt, so you can use that. In fact, Let's Encrypt is also enabled here. If you are on the public DNS, you can use that. In network section, you will see here the virtual bridge and the physical network card, which is ENS18, and VMBR0, which is the virtual bridge or virtual switch within the Proxmox virtual environment. This particular VMBR is connected to the physical port. So you can see here it is bridged to this physical port, and that physical port is connected to my physical network or the physical switch. Once you do the installation, by default, this configuration is created. And if you want to change the IP address, you should not be assigning the IP address to the physical port. On physical port, of course, it gives you the option, but you don't need to assign the IP address to the physical port. You will be assigning the IP address to the VMBR. When you are creating any new virtual machine, you will be using VMBR0 as the virtual switch, so that virtual machine will be able to communicate with the network using this particular bridge. So this is a virtual bridge. This is a virtual switch which is bridged to your internet, which is bridged to your physical network using this particular physical card. Any network device that starts with ENS is the physical, and anyone which starts with VM is virtual. So virtual bridges can be created here. You can of course create multiple bridges. For example, I can create a new Linux bridge. It will be VMBR1, and I can simply create. Right now you can see this VMBR1 is not linked to any physical network. I'll not be going in detail. I have explained everything related to the network in the network section. Once we go through this course, you will see in detail about network. You will also see the network diagram. And once you are done with this, you will apply the configuration, and that's it. So this was all about systems. And down here, you can see the updates which we have already seen. In case you want to refresh the updates, you will be able to refresh the updates. Whatever updates are available in the operating system, so you will be able to see that, and you will be also able to upgrade that. And in case you want to use the command line user interface, you can do that as well. For example, if I go to shell, I can do the same commands that is normally used in Linux: apt get update. All the package releases are available now. So I can again do apt get dist upgrade. Here you can see if anything is available, it will upgrade. Right now you can see. Of course, if I do no from here, the same command will automatically run from here. If I go to upgrade and click this, in fact, it will be running the same command. You can see here apt get dist upgrade. It has run the same command. I'll type yes. So it is showing me that these are packages which will be upgraded, and we'll wait for this to complete. So this way you can come back to your Proxmox virtual environment and update any packages which are available so that you can keep your Proxmox virtual environment safe and secure and up to date. Of course, the enterprise repository is not available. So now we'll see here, it is updating the packages. Alright, you can see here that everything has been updated. So your system is up to date now. I can simply close this from here. Current package has been updated to the new version, and these are all the updates which were installed. Now I can go to the firewall section here. Proxmox has built-in firewall, which means that if you are directly exposing Proxmox to the public network, or even if your Proxmox is on the local network where you want to make sure that external access is blocked, you can add all the rules by clicking add, and you can add the accept or reject rules for different ports, for different protocols and all of that. But I will not be explaining you in this section. This option is available here in case you want to use it. Here in the options, right now you can see that firewall is enabled by default. In case you want to disable, you can do this. If you disable it, so it is still either enabled or disabled at the data center level. At PVE level right now it is enabled. In case you want to see the log of your firewall, you will click here. All the logs will be available here. Then is the disks. Now these are the physical disks which are available inside the Proxmox virtual environment. So if you have multiple nodes, all of the multiple nodes will be having the disks. So those disks can be individually seen in all the Proxmox virtual nodes. If you see here, if you expand this, this is the storage. So disk is physical disk, but these are the logical volumes. So PVE is Proxmox virtual environment local volume, and this is PVE logical volume manager or LVM. If I click here into disks, you will see here, this is the way the physical disk is partitioned. So you have dev STA, which is the physical disk, and this disk is 34.36 GB, and then SDA is 1.03 MB, which is a partition created while we were installing Proxmox virtual environment. And then here is the second STA, which is UEFI, which is the boot partition, and here is the LVM, which is the local LVM and LVM thin, and this is your complete disk. The moment you add any new disk, USB flash drive or any other disk, you attach it over here. So all the physical disks will be appearing here. If you have multiple nodes here, so disks in the multiple nodes will be available in those specific nodes. In my case, I have one physical disk added into Proxmox virtual environment, so this is available here. In case there are multiple disks, you can of course wipe the disk, you can do the partition. In disk, you will be able to click the LVM and you will be able to see the logical volume manager that out of PVE 100% SDA is being used as a LVM. Here is LVM thin. LVM thin is also added here. You can create a new thin pool also in case you have additional disk. Right now there is no disk available, so you won't be able to use it. Otherwise, if you add any new disk, you can simply click here and add to the pool. So I have explained you that in the storage section. In storage section, I have explained you in detail how you can start adding the disks. This was about physical disk, and then we have the distributed storage also, which is done through the Ceph storage. So Ceph is one of the best options if you want to use the distributed storage and if you want to use your Proxmox for the high availability. I have explained you that in detail, and I have configured that in the Ceph storage section, where you will see how the Ceph is created. So Ceph is in fact consisting of the monitors, OSTs, and then you create the pool. Then is the replication. Replication needs at least 2 nodes. Right now we'll not be able to do that. Then is the task history. All the tasks that we have done, whether we updated the packages, whether we reloaded the networking. So who has done that? So all of the history will be available here so that you can see, you can do the audit trail and understand who has done what. Then is the subscription. If you have bought the subscription, you can upload the subscription key from here. Then we will be able to get the enterprise updates from the Proxmox virtual environment. So in order to update the subscription, you will come here, upload the subscription key, and the key will be available. The moment it is done, your Proxmox status will change to the active as a subscription. So in case you want to remove the subscription from this server and want to add this subscription to any other server, so you can use that from here. So, and if you want to check the status of the subscription, you will click here, so you'll get the subscription status. And if you click on system report, it will give you detailed report of your Proxmox virtual environment. It is available here, all the packages which are installed, all the storage which is available, everything related to your Proxmox virtual environment is available here in this report. You can download this report, it will save as a text file, and then you can share it with the systems manager or with the support team if you want. So this was about the Proxmox virtual environment node. So this is the hardware server. In hardware server, Proxmox is installed, and complete details of this we have seen here in this particular section. Let us manage the Proxmox virtual environment at the data center level. So right now I have only one node available. Once you connect all the Proxmox node, it will give you the combined information of all the Proxmox node and all the resources that you add into your Proxmox virtual environment. We'll be going to data center first. Of course, in search, you can search any resource that you have, as I am having only one node, and that node has one software defined network, and then there are two storages. But if you have a lot of resources available and it becomes hard for you to find, so you can click on search and you can search for it from here. I'll go into summary, and summary will show you combined health of your Proxmox nodes. Right now, as you can see, I have only one node available, and there is one online and 0 offline. Here you can see how many virtual machines are available, how many are running, how many are stopped. Here you can see LXC container or the Linux containers, how many are running, how many are stopped. The usage of total CPU or combined CPUs of all the Proxmox nodes, once you will see here, combined memory of all the Proxmox nodes, and combined storage of all the Proxmox nodes. Here you will see the detailed usage of all the nodes. And then of course we don't have any subscription, so it will show me there is no subscription available. So this was the summary of all your nodes. If you go here to nodes, as we added the nodes that time, so we can also see it is available here. We can double click and edit the nodes or add the nodes here. And here is the cluster. So in the cluster section, I'll show you how we can create the cluster. Ceph is also here. There is no Ceph created. So in Ceph section, detailed explanation is available there. So in options, you will see the options related to this particular data center. All of these settings are default here. You don't need to change anything. Now here you will see storage. This storage is combined storage of all the Proxmox nodes. One Proxmox node which we saw here, it has its own storage options, and here in storage you can see the disks. But in the data center, you will not see disks, you will see the storage which is here. So you have these storages, so multiple storages will be here in different nodes. So all the combined storages view will be available here in the data center. And of course you can make the changes. For example, if you see this local is available in var lib vz. If you remember, I showed you WinSCP. So if I access this again, 192.168.100.5, and here is the user ID and password, you will see the same folder that I was talking about, var lib and vz. So this is the folder where dumps, images and templates are stored. The same is available here, var lib vz. In case you want to add any other directory, you can click on add and you can add the directory over here. And this LVM thin is the thin pool where the disks and containers will be added, and it has come from one node. But if you want to add any external storage to your data center, as you can see, I'm on my data center. This option, storage option, will not be available in the Proxmox VE or in the node. The option will only be available in data center view, and in data center view you can see we have already seen these storage devices which were coming from the Proxmox node. We can add any external storage from here. For example, if I have any NFS storage on my network, we can add that over here. If you have any iSCSI, you can add that here. If you have Ceph file system, you can add that here. All other Proxmox backup server, LVM thin, LVM, all these can be added over here. I have explained you that in the storage section, where you will understand how we can add the storage on Proxmox data center. Here is the backup in case you want to add the backup of your virtual machines, of your containers, so you can add it from here. I have explained you that in the backup section. Similarly, replication is also explained to you in the replication section. And here in the permission, you can add the user permission, you can create the API token, or you can create the group permission. These can be done from here. You can see the users here, you can add more users here in case you want to add the users to manage this particular Proxmox virtual environment. You can create the API tokens to do the integration with external systems for the reporting purpose or for the management purpose. Two-factor authentication we have already seen. You can add the two-factor authentication from here as well. So depending upon the size of your system administrators, depending upon the size of your team, you can create the groups here, create the pool, and this pool will be the group of resources. In fact, for example, there are 3 nodes assigned to one system administrators, 2 nodes are assigned to another system administrator, or if your data center is consisting of multiple tenants, so you can create the pools by the tenants, and those pools can be assigned to multiple users or multiple groups. So your data center can grow big when your users can also be isolated through the pools. So you can create the pools to isolate different nodes, to isolate different resources, and combined resources will create the pool. That pool can either be assigned to the group of people, and the group of people will have multiple users. So depending upon how you want to create, you will be able to do that. Then is the role, and these are some of the roles which are by default available in the Proxmox virtual environment. You can create more roles in case you want to create. Then is the RAMs. You can add the LDAP or OpenID Connect also, and you can also add the Active Directory. So here users or privileges, the moment you run the sync job, it will synchronize those here. So this was about the permission section in the Proxmox virtual environment data center. Then is the high availability. If the Proxmox cluster is created, then you will be able to see the high availability. You can do the fencing also in case any node is failing, in any Proxmox node is failing, and how the VM will be behaving. Will it go back to the same node or will it remain here? All of that can be seen over here. And then is SDN. SDN is the software defined network, how the zones are created, how the VTNets or virtual networks are created, and what are the controller options here. Here you can see the ACME, which is the SSL certificate. Firewall, we have seen that one of the firewall was in the Proxmox node. Another firewall is on the Proxmox data center. Even if you enable any port here, for example, if I'm enabling port 80 to the data center, but individually I can block that port into Proxmox node. Data center firewall is at the data center level, and you can go back to the firewall of the Proxmox virtual node, so you can do the settings from there. Of course, you can define various aliases the way you define in the firewall. Matrix server is in fact an external server which will be periodically receiving the statistics from your Proxmox nodes, and that is used for the reporting purposes, for audit purposes, for understanding if there is anything wrong in your Proxmox virtual environment, or in case you want to just see the dashboards of your Proxmox virtual environment. So these servers are in fact the Graphite and InfluxDB. Grafana can also be connected for the reporting and dashboard. And here the resource mapping. So you can see all the PCI devices. If I click add, so you will see all the PCI devices which are available. And if I want to see all the USB devices, so you will be able to see all the USB devices which are available on this Proxmox node. And then you can use the USB pass-through or PCI pass-through using these resource mapping options. Notification, so by default, a mail to root option is available here. If you go into permission section and user section here, if I double click this, you will see here the email address. So this is the email address. So anything that goes wrong, you will get the notification. The email address of root@pam is amjad@syncbricks.com. So whenever there is any backup that has been completed, or if there is any issue in the backup, so you will get the notification to your specific user. I'll leave it default as of now. Here is the support. If you have the valid subscription, so you will be able to talk to the support from this particular option. Okay, this was all in the data center section, but we have to now cover in the PVE. These 3 options are there. So this is the local network, virtual networks of the Proxmox virtual environment. One VTNet we have seen here, which is SDN. SDN is available inside the data center, and similarly we have the local network which is available locally within the Proxmox node. So you can configure these. Right now we can see only one VMBR is available here. So all the local networks are available here and the permissions are available here. I've explained you in the network section how this local network works and how the permissions will work here. And then is the local PVE, which we have already seen that this local PVE is able to store the backups and able to store the ISO images, installation images, and here the CT templates, which are the container templates, and these are the permissions that who will be able to access this particular storage. And local LVM is in fact storing the CT volume, which are container volumes, and VM disk, which are the virtual machine disks. Whenever you will be creating any virtual machine or container, its disk will be available inside the local LVM. In local PVE, you will see the backups, ISO images, container templates will be available here. If you add more storage devices here into PVE, and if you install any shared resource also here, so these will be available here as well. I have explained you that in the storage section. So this was all about the Proxmox virtual environment user interface. So we have seen the overview of the web user interface in this particular video. Let us continue to the next video.